Some things in life you never really picture yourself admitting aloud, like, I was compelled to wed my own sister, but that's precisely what occurred to me. And what's even worse, everyone surrounding me, my father, the religious leader, my whole community, they were aware, they rationalized it, they sanctified it. They declared it Allah's decree. I didn't desire it, I didn't select it. I was ensnared, confined by terror, confined by kinship, confined by a faith I believed was reality, until that evening destroyed everything. This isn't merely a tale about a wedding, it's a tale about a man who abandoned his essence, about treachery so profound it ripped apart everything I had faith in. About a spirit unraveling beneath the burden of disgrace, guilt, and quietness. But you know, it's also about something greater. It's about a sound in the shadows, a murmur that declared, "You are not tainted. You are selected." It's about what occurs when the God you dreaded becomes silent, and a God you were instructed to despise calls your name. This tale is for the skeptics. The ones concealing behind compliance because they're scared to pose questions. The ones imprisoned between devotion and reality. The ones weeping into their prayer rugs, questioning if anyone listens. If you've ever sensed like your spirit doesn't fit in the world you were brought into, if you've ever pleaded to God for responses in a tongue you barely comprehended, if you've ever questioned if there's more, this tale is for you. I recall the fragrance of rosewater in the atmosphere, the rhythm of percussion outside my window. The women in my household were celebrating with joy. My mother had arranged my white ceremonial outfit on the bed. Everything appeared like a festivity, but within I felt lifeless. I should have been joyful. Every Muslim male envisions this moment, his wedding day, dignity, duty, reverence. The instant your household finally declares you are a man. I had devoted my entire existence doing what they anticipated of me. I learned verses, worshipped 5 times daily, fasted, complied. I never challenged, I feared Allah, I feared my father more. But nothing, absolutely nothing could have readied me for what I was about to discover. It began 2 weeks prior. My father informed me he had organized my marriage. He stated it was time for you to guide. I didn't even inquire who the girl was, because in our society that's irrelevant. Your parents decide, you comply. End of discussion. Compliance is righteousness, defiance is revolt, and revolt comes from Satan. So I agreed. I believed I was acting correctly. I believed I was being a devoted son, a devoted Muslim, but I had no clue that I was entering a horror so dark it would destroy everything I ever believed in. The evening before the ceremony, my cousin took me aside. His voice was shaking. He kept glancing over his shoulder. "You must know something, brother," he said. "The girl, she's not just a distant relative like they claimed." I scowled. "What are you saying?" He paused, then whispered, "She's your blood sister from your father's second wife." I felt like the earth had been torn from beneath me. "What? That's impossible. My father only has one wife." He shook his head slowly. "That's false. He had a second wife in the north. It was hidden, her own. But they had a daughter, and she's the one you're marrying." I stared at him, heart racing, face burning. I wanted to strike him for saying something so revolting, but deep down I knew he wasn't lying, because in our culture, secrets like this are buried deep, but never forgotten. I confronted my father that evening. I didn't even knock. I burst into his room, heart pounding. "Is it accurate?" I yelled. "Is she my sister?" He looked up from his prayer mat, composed, cold. "You don't address me like that," he said. "And yes, she is your sister from another mother. But Allah is compassionate. This is a trial." "A trial? A trial!" I screamed. "You want me to marry my own blood and call it sacred?" He rose, his expression hardened. "Do not question what you don't comprehend." "I've consulted the Imam," he said. "It's acceptable under certain circumstances. This family must remain pure. We cannot allow strangers to destroy our lineage." I felt nauseated. I retreated like he was a demon. "You're insane," I whispered. "This is wicked. You're asking me to become something I can't even name." He stepped closer, seized my collar. "You will do as I command," he hissed, "or you will bring dishonor upon this entire household, and trust me, dishonor is worse than death." That evening I sobbed like a child, alone in my room, fists tight, heart broken. I looked up at the ceiling and whispered, "Allah, are you present? Is this who you are?" And for the first time in my life the silence frightened me. The morning of the ceremony I moved like a corpse. My mother kissed my forehead, eyes moist with pride. "You are honoring us today, my dear," she said. "Your father is proud. Allah is satisfied." I wanted to scream, I wanted to flee, but I felt like a prisoner walking to his own death. When I arrived at the ceremony hall, everything was golden and white. Candles, rugs, Quran recitations playing softly. The Imam stood prepared, the families assembled. and then I saw her. She was trembling, dressed in red, veil covering her face, her eyes. They looked exactly like mine, identical. A memory struck me. I remembered a girl I saw once at a funeral years ago. I was maybe 11. She had the same eyes, the same smile. Someone whispered she was from the northern family. I never saw her again until now. My hands began trembling. The imam started the ceremony. "Do you accept this marriage under Allah's will?" he asked me. My lips parted, silence, everyone stared. My father's eyes burned into mine. I looked at the girl, she was crying silently. Then I spoke the words. Yes. The sound of celebration exploded, the guests applauded, the drums began. But, inside me, something perished. That evening, after the guests had departed, I locked myself in the bedroom. She sat on the edge of the bed, trembling, not speaking a word. I could sense her shame, her fear. I turned my back to her and whispered, "I'm sorry, I didn't choose this." She nodded slowly, neither did I. We didn't touch. We didn't sleep. We just sat there, side by side, strangers bound by blood and betrayal. I didn't feel like a husband or a man or even a Muslim anymore. I felt like an abomination. I stayed awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling, heart numb. And then I made a decision. I stood up, packed a bag, and wrote a single note. "I'm not returning. I can't do this. Forgive me." Then I walked out into the darkness, into the unknown. That was the day my soul shattered. The day the foundations of everything I believed in, family, faith, identity, crumbled. But strangely, it was also the day something new started. A crack of light in the darkness, a seed of rebellion, a whisper of truth. I didn't know it yet, but I was on a collision course with the living God. And my life would never be the same again. When I departed that evening, I didn't know where I was heading. I didn't care. I just ran. Through the dirt roads of our town, past the old mosque, past the schoolyard where I used to memorize Quran as a boy. My feet were raw, my mind spinning. I ended up on the outskirts of the city in a tiny guest house with cracked walls and no electricity. It was cold, filthy, but it was distant from them, from him. I collapsed on the floor, curled up in a corner like a child, and I wept, not quiet tears. No, I sobbed from a place I didn't even know existed. Inside me, a part of me that had never had permission to feel, to scream, to break. That evening something in me wondered, a question I was too afraid to say aloud. What if everything they taught me was a lie? I started remembering things I had buried, things they told me never to question. I remembered being 6 years old, sitting on my knees in front of my father as he recited from the Quran, "Obey Allah, obey the Prophet, obey your parents, this is Islam." He would test me daily, and if I hesitated even for a second, his belt would respond. I learned early, obedience is survival. You don't ask why, you don't wonder, you memorize, you submit. I remembered how when I was 9, I asked my teacher why Allah referred to himself in the plural we, if he was only one. He slapped me so hard I couldn't hear for a day. "Satan is whispering to you," he said. "Don't you dare question the book of Allah." So I stopped asking. I built a wall in my heart, one that said, truth is whatever they tell you. Doubt is a sin, curiosity is rebellion. But now, sitting alone in that cold room, everything was unraveling. I picked up my phone. I had over 30 missed calls. Father, mother, my uncles, my brother, even the imam. Texts flooded in. "You have brought shame upon your blood. You are cursed. Allah will punish you. Come back and repent before it is too late." One message stood out. It was from my mother. "Please, my son, don't break your father. Don't destroy our family." I stared at that text for hours. My heart ached for her. She had always been gentle with me. Kind. She didn't choose this life either. She survived it. But something in me knew if I went back, I would never escape again. So I turned the phone off and I cried again. The next morning I went to a nearby mosque, not to pray but to see, to observe. I watched the men bowing in unison, pressing their heads to the carpet, repeating words they were taught since childhood. I once found peace in this rhythm, but now it felt empty, it felt mechanical, robotic. My mind whispered, is this really faith? Or is it fear dressed up as worship? I sat outside the mosque wall trying to pray. I begged Allah for answers. "Oh Allah, help me, show me the truth. I don't understand what's happening to me." But all I heard was silence. And silence is the loudest sound when you're desperate. I tried to talk to an old family friend, a sheikh who once blessed me at my naming ceremony. He welcomed me with warmth. But the moment I brought up the wedding, the truth, his face changed. I told him everything. That I was forced to marry my sister, that I didn't want to, that I felt something deep inside me was wrong. He sipped his tea and said, "Sometimes Allah tests us in ways that seem strange to our modern minds, but the wisdom of the faith is higher than your emotions." I stared at him. "So it's wise to marry my sister?" I asked. He looked at me unmoved. Your father did what was necessary. There are examples in the early generations. Keep quiet, be patient. Allah will honor your obedience. I felt a fire burn inside me. You're telling me to sacrifice my soul for the sake of shame? You want me to destroy both of us just to protect a secret? He stood up. You are arrogant, he snapped. You speak like an unbeliever. Leave before you corrupt others. I walked out, and for the first time in my life I was no longer afraid of their threats. I was afraid of something else, something bigger. Who was I without Islam? If I rejected all this, my father, my family, my religion, then who was I? What did I have left? I wasn't just walking away from a wedding, I was walking away from everything that had defined me since I was born. The shame was overwhelming, loneliness unbearable. I remember lying on that guest house floor one night, staring at the cracked ceiling and thinking, maybe I should just die. I didn't want to live in this in-between space, too Muslim to be free, too awake to pretend. I didn't belong anywhere anymore. And yet, in that darkness, something strange happened. A memory came back. A small one from 3 years ago. I had watched a video online, accidentally. It was a debate between a Christian and a Muslim scholar. I only clicked out of curiosity, but there was one moment, one sentence that lodged itself in my memory. The Christian said, Jesus didn't come to control you, he came to save you from sin, from shame, from the lies that enslave your soul. At the time I laughed, idolatry I had muttered, but now, alone, broken, those words came back. To save you from the lies that enslave your soul. Could that be what was happening to me? Was I finally seeing the lies? And if so, who was Jesus really? I had to know. Even if it meant going deeper into the fire, even if it meant losing what little I had left, I didn't realize it yet, but God was already calling me. Not with thunder, not with angels, but with whispers in the silence, with memories, with pain. He was tearing down the prison around my soul, brick by brick, and the next step was a dream that would change my life forever. I want to tell you about the night that broke me. Not the night I left, but the night I stayed. The night I let fear win. The night I stood at the altar, eyes locked on my sister, and said yes. I never planned to go through with it. After what my cousin told me, after what my father confirmed, after the arguments and the threats, I swore I'd run. But something happened, something that only people from my world would understand. Fear. Not just fear of punishment, fear of dishonor. Shame is heavier than death in our culture. You carry it not just in your own soul, but in the soul of your family, your tribe, your ancestors. It stains your name, your blood. And that morning, when my uncle came to the guest house, stood in the doorway and said, "Come home or we bury your mother alive in grief," I broke. I went back, not because I agreed, not because I had peace, but because the fear was louder than my conscience. The house was filled with music, henna on the women's hands, perfume in the air, relatives from distant villages filled our compound, laughter echoed, plates of rice, sweet tea and roasted lamb. I stood in the middle of it all, a ghost. The imam arrived. I recognized his voice from the mosque years ago. He hugged me and whispered, "You're doing the right thing. Allah will reward you for your sacrifice." Sacrifice. That word echoed in my head. I looked around. No one knew. They didn't know who she was, they didn't know what this was, but the ones who did were smiling. The ceremony began. I sat on the rug across from the imam, surrounded by elders. He asked me the question I had dreaded. "Do you accept this marriage with this woman under Allah's will?" My throat tightened. My heart screamed no. But then I saw my father standing behind him, arms folded, jaw clenched. My mother sobbing softly in the corner, and her, my bride, my sister, trembling under her red veil, hands shaking, and I thought, maybe if I just say the words, maybe I can fix it later, maybe I can escape tomorrow, maybe this will all go away. So I said it, yes. 3 times, like a spell. And just like that, I was married. That evening, the room was decorated with candles, petals on the bed, silk sheets. They had prepared it like a celebration of love, but it felt like a tomb. She sat on the edge of the mattress, silent, wrapped in red. She hadn't removed her veil. I hadn't looked at her since the ceremony. I stood near the window, facing away. The silence was suffocating. I finally spoke. "I'm sorry." Her voice barely a whisper. "You shouldn't be the one apologizing. We both knew what this was. Neither of us wanted it. We were puppets, bound by fear, manipulated by those who called it Allah's will." She finally lifted her veil. Our eyes met, and in that moment, it felt like I was staring into a mirror, into the broken child I had once been. We didn't touch. We didn't speak again. We just sat frozen, two prisoners in the same cell. I didn't sleep that night. Around 3 in the morning I stood up pacing, sweating, my mind unraveling. I felt dirty, not just physically, but spiritually, like something inside me had been contaminated. I walked to the bathroom, splashed water on my face, but no matter how many times I washed, I couldn't feel clean. I fell to my knees on the cold tile and wept. Allah, what have I done? What have they made me do? Is this who you are? The silence was unbearable. I returned to the room. She had fallen asleep facing the wall. I stared at the door, then at my bag in the corner, and I made a decision. I took the bag, walked to the door, and without saying a word, I left. No plan, no money, just my phone, a few clothes, and a fire burning in my soul. A fire called truth. I walked for hours through alleyways and highways until I reached the edge of the city. I found an abandoned building, some old construction site. I climbed up to the top floor, threw my bag in the corner, and collapsed. It smelled like dust and decay, but it was quiet, and for the first time in days, I breathed. Not because I was free yet, but because I had chosen. I had said no, even if it was a little too late. And that no was the beginning of something I couldn't explain. I lay there under the open sky, staring up at the stars, shivering in the cold, and I thought, what now? I had no home, no family, no God, at least not one I could understand anymore. The walls of Islam had collapsed around me, and behind them was just darkness. But in that darkness a light was coming. I didn't know it yet, but I was about to meet a man in white who would call me chosen. I stayed in that abandoned building for 3 days. No mattress, no food, just a cracked floor and a broken soul. During the day I barely moved. At night I barely slept. I was afraid to close my eyes, afraid that the moment I did, the memories would come rushing back. But on the 3rd night, I couldn't fight it anymore. I curled up in the corner, head against my bag, the city lights flickering faintly in the distance. And somewhere between exhaustion and despair, I had a dream. I was standing in the middle of a vast desert. The wind howled around me, sand whipping across my skin. The sky was gray like a storm was coming. I looked down and realized I was barefoot. My feet were bruised, bleeding, and I was wearing the same clothes I had escaped in. Suddenly, I heard a voice behind me, firm, gentle. "Why are you running?" I turned. There stood a man in white. His robe was radiant. Not blinding, but glowing, pure, like it was made of light and fabric at the same time. His face, I can't describe it fully, but it was kind, strong, and somehow familiar. He looked at me as if he had known me forever. "You are not defiled," he said. "You are chosen." I fell to my knees. "No!" I cried. "You don't know what I've done, who I am. I'm filthy. I was forced to—" He raised his hand. "You are not what they called you. You are mine." I woke up gasping, sweat soaked through my shirt. The city outside was silent. The moon was high. I sat up, heart pounding, eyes wide, and I whispered to the darkness, "Who was that?" I didn't say his name. I couldn't. I didn't dare. But I knew deep in my spirit that wasn't a normal dream. That man, whoever he was, had authority. He didn't just speak truth, he was truth. I tried to shake it off, tried to tell myself it was just stress, trauma, sleep deprivation. But the words wouldn't leave me. "You are not defiled. You are chosen." Why would anyone say that to me? I had just betrayed my faith, my family. I was living in hiding, an apostate, a coward, a disgrace. And yet he called me chosen. It didn't make sense. But for the first time in weeks I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The next morning, I remembered something. A few months before the wedding, I had been scrolling through videos on YouTube. Out of curiosity, I clicked on a short clip titled, "What is the Gospel of Jesus Christ?" I only watched about 30 seconds before I closed it. But one verse stuck with me. "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Matthew 11:28. Back then it sounded soft, weak. Now it felt like water in a desert. I opened my phone. My battery was low but still alive. I searched the verse again. I read it slowly, word by word. "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened." That was me. "And I will give you rest." I hadn't known rest since I was a boy. Not real rest, not peace. Just rules, rituals, performance, fear. This verse didn't sound like religion. It sounded like invitation. I spent the next few hours searching quietly, cautiously. I didn't want my digital footprint traced. I found testimonies. Stories of people like me. Ex-Muslims from Egypt, Iran, Indonesia, Sudan. All of them had encountered this Jesus. Some in dreams, some through scripture, some through the love of Christians who risked everything to share the truth. I cried as I listened because their stories sounded like mine, and for the first time I didn't feel crazy. I felt seen. But I also felt terrified because I knew what would happen if anyone found out. I wasn't just exploring a different religion, I was stepping into apostasy. That's worse than murder. It's betrayal of God, of the prophet, of everything sacred. I had seen what happened to others. Beatings, disownment, honor killings. I had heard of boys in my old neighborhood who disappeared overnight. Their sin? Asking questions, doubting the Quran, reading the Bible. And yet, I couldn't stop. Something deep inside me was awakening, a hunger I had never felt before, not for rules, not for rituals, but for truth, for love, for a God who doesn't just demand submission but offers relationship, a God who says, "Come to me." That night I knelt on the floor of that abandoned room. No prayer mat, no direction toward Mecca, no Arabic recitations, just silence, tears, and a whisper. If you're real, Jesus, if you're the one who spoke to me in that dream, I want to know you. I didn't even know how to pray. I just spoke. And something happened. I can't explain it. But the air in the room felt lighter. Like a weight had been lifted off my soul. Like the shame, the darkness had been pierced, not fully gone, but cracked. Like light was seeping in. I didn't sleep much that night either, but I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. I was searching, and I knew something had begun. The next day I went to a public library across town. They had computers, free Wi-Fi. I typed one word into Google, Bible. I downloaded an app. My hands were shaking the whole time, but when I opened to the Gospel of John and read the first words, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God," I felt something in my chest crack open. I kept reading, and then I reached this verse. He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, he gave the right to become children of God. John 1:11-12. Children of God, not slaves, not servants. Children. I couldn't breathe. Could it really be true? Could I, broken, dirty, confused, become a child of God, not because I earned it but because he gave it? That night I went back to the building, sat under the stars again, and I whispered, "If you're real, don't stop, I'm listening." I thought the worst was over, but the real storm was just beginning. The moment I started reading the Bible, the moment I dared to let hope in, they found me. It started with a knock at the door of the building I was staying in. I stayed silent, hiding in the corner, holding my breath. Then I heard my uncle's voice through the crack in the window. "We know what you're doing." My heart stopped. "You think you can hide from us, from Allah, from your own blood?" They didn't break in, not that night, but I knew the hunt had begun. That evening I switched locations, but somehow they were always close. I kept reading, late at night in stolen hours in internet cafes where no one knew my name. Each verse from the Gospels felt like water on scorched earth. But the more peace I found in those pages, the more the voices of condemnation grew louder. One afternoon I made a mistake. I was watching a sermon on YouTube. A man with tears in his eyes spoke about the love of Christ. I had headphones on, but the volume leaked. That's when my uncle, who had somehow followed me, grabbed me by the neck. "God forgive you," he shouted. "You disgrace. You're watching infidels in public." He dragged me outside. People stared. "You're an embarrassment to our family. Your father should have killed you the day you were born." I fought back, pushed away, ran, but he chased me down, beat me to the ground with his fists. "You are dead to us," he spat. I limped away, covered in blood, found another alley to crawl into, and I wept. Not because of the pain, but because I finally understood what it meant to be cut off. I had no one, no family, no country, no home. I was unrooted, a fugitive, but even in that pit I felt it again, that soft presence, that whisper, "You are mine." The next day I watched another testimony. This time it was a young woman from Iran. She had converted after a dream of Jesus. She said her own father had tried to strangle her. She survived, barely. And then she said, "But I'd rather die in Christ than live in chains." Those words pierced me because I knew the chains. They had been around my soul for years, and now they were breaking. It was 2 weeks later. I hadn't seen anyone from my family. I thought maybe they'd given up. Then he showed up, my younger brother. He found me hiding behind an abandoned garage. I had just finished praying, not to Allah, but to Jesus. Quietly, hesitantly, when I turned, he was standing there, tears in his eyes, but not sorrow, rage. "What have you done to us?" he said. I didn't answer. "Mom cries every night. Dad hasn't eaten in days. You've made us into a laughingstock." I stepped closer. "I didn't do this to hurt you," I said. "I did this because I found something real. That was the last straw." He snapped. "You found idolatry." He lunged at me with a broken pipe. I dodged the first swing but not the second. Pain exploded in my ribs. I collapsed. He stood over me, ready to strike again, and I whispered, "Even if you kill me, I belong to Jesus." That's when he stopped. Something in him froze. He stared at me like he was seeing a ghost. Then he dropped the pipe and ran. I lay there bleeding, barely able to breathe. Someone found me that night, an old woman from the neighborhood. She called for help. I woke up in a hospital, bruised, battered, but alive. And that's where I met her, the Christian nurse. Her name was Grace. I didn't tell her anything, but she looked at me with such gentleness it broke me. One night she came into my room, checked my wounds, and softly said, "I don't know what you've been through, but Jesus sees you and he loves you." I turned away, tears spilling down my face. She placed her hand on my shoulder and prayed. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but in that moment I wept like a child, not because I was weak, but because I was starting to believe it might be true. Grace gave me a Bible app on a cheap phone she gifted me. I started reading from the Gospel of Luke and I couldn't stop. I had always been told Jesus was just a prophet, a man, a messenger who would return to break the cross and destroy the Christians, but the Jesus in these pages was nothing like that. He touched lepers, he loved sinners, he forgave prostitutes, he wept, he bled, he died for me. And then I had another dream. This time it was clear. I was in a field, empty, barren. I was crying, calling out, "Where are you?" Then he came, the same man in white, but now he had scars in his hands. He knelt beside me, wiped my tears, and said, "You are not lost. You were always mine." I woke up sobbing but smiling. I went to Grace the next day. "I think I believe," I said. "I think I believe in Jesus." She smiled. "Then you're not alone anymore." Word got out, somehow. My father heard I was in the hospital. He came with the imam. They demanded a meeting. Grace tried to protect me, but I agreed. I had to face them. We met in a back room. My father glared at me. "You can still repent," he said. "This is your last chance." The imam added, "Say the testimony of faith, reject this Jesus, or we declare you apostate." I stood, hands trembling but heart steady. "I found the truth," I said. "I found peace, not in Islam. In Christ." My father screamed. The imam stood and spit on the floor. "You are dead to us," he said. Then they left, just like that. But I wasn't afraid. For the first time, I felt peace. Even as the world around me collapsed, I knew I had made my choice. I had chosen the cross. The church was small, underground, hidden, but it was alive. They welcomed me like family, hugged me, prayed over me, fed me. No questions, no judgment, just love. Real love. Weeks later, I was baptized in a bathtub with a few believers around me. As I came out of the water, I felt something break. The shame, the fear, the years of lies gone, replaced with something new, freedom. They gave me a new name, not legally, but spiritually. John, a reminder of the one who prepared the way. I wasn't the same man anymore, not the Muslim, not the son, not the runaway. I was reborn. Today I record this testimony for you. Whoever you are, wherever you are, if you're doubting, if you're hiding, if you're afraid, I want you to know you are not alone. I lost everything, my name, my blood, my place, but I gained everything. I found Christ, I found freedom, I found home, and I forgave them, all of them. My father, my brother, even the imam, not because they deserved it, but because I did. I deserve to be free. Now I serve others like me, persecuted, running, wounded, but chosen. You're not what they say you are loved, you are seen, you are not defiled, you are chosen. Come to Jesus.